So we have breaking news. Kilmar Garcia is alive. And in fact, the Democratic senator from Maryland actually had a chance to talk to him. This is what it says. This is from Senator Chris Van Hollen. I said my main goal of this trip was to meet with Kilmar. Tonight I had that chance. I've called his wife, Jennifer, to pass along the message of love. I look forward to providing a full update upon my return. So I don't think Kilmar's coming home quite yet, but it looks like that he's still alive. And I'll just be frank with you guys, I wasn't expecting him to be, because essentially Bukele and El Salvador, they weren't producing him. They're like, hey, where's the guy? And they wouldn't do anything. And now actually they got him. I mean, they got him right there. I mean, you can see him. It says here, this is from Bukele, the president down in El Salvador. Kilmar Abreu Garcia miraculously risen from the, quote, death camps and, quote, torture, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador. And he puts emoji, drink. I'll just be frank with you guys. Bukele, don't trust him. He's a dictator. We don't know what goes on in that prison exactly. I'll just say it is not a safe place. And, Kilmar's probably not in a safe position right now. And at the moment, I'm sure he's got a story to tell about the Trump people. So the Trump people probably don't want to get this story out there, right? And again, the Trump people, if you've been following the story, they admitted that they mistakenly sent him to El Salvador. Like, they admitted a mistake. But then they just doubled down like, well, it's a mistake, but we're just going to stick to our guns. It doesn't really make sense from the Trump point of view. But a lot of stuff that Trump does doesn't make sense. They sent people down there without due process. They did it in the middle of the night. The allegations are sketchy at best. And I want to go through this stuff because I think it's an important story. Because if you've been following this, effectively, Trump is trying to push the limits of what they can and cannot do. And if they can just start arresting whoever they want without due process, right, without showing proper evidence to a judge, they could send any one of us to El Salvador. So, do keep an eye on the story. I think it's extremely important. Now, I do want to give you a bit of the Fox News version of it, just so you can see what it is and what they're saying, and we'll get an idea of what we're up against. So have a listen to this.
Was asked if he was a gang member. He said no. Garcia had been deemed a gang member by the Prince George's County Police Department, in part because he was at the time wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and a hoodie.
Garcia's a Bulls fan, but he's from El Salvador, and he lives in Maryland, not Chicago. The Bulls lost 60 games in 2019, so why the hat? Can Garcia name anyone on the team? Anyone on any Bulls team besides Jordan? Everyone from El Salvador knows what it means when you wear a Bulls hat. It means you're MS-13. When you're in Compton, you don't accidentally wear red and say, oh, I didn't know red was Bloods. If you're a Latin American illegal alien in Maryland, you don't accidentally wear Chicago Bulls gear and hang around with high-ranking gangsters from MS-13. This is the reason he had to break into the country. Are you ready? A local gang in El Salvador was shaking down his grandma's tortilla shop. And his lawyers say if he gets sent back to El Salvador, he's a dead man. It's a tortilla blood vendetta. Seriously.
So that's how they portray it, okay, over at Fox News. I just want you to see. So basically they want to make it like, oh, it's if you wear a Bulls hoodie, you must be part of a gang. That's how they make it sound. It's a ridiculous argument, but they make a lot of these ridiculous arguments over at Fox, and I just want you to see it for yourself. What they're doing right now is they're using a mom who lost her daughter to gang violence. I make no jokes about this kind of thing. I'm sorry for the loss of your daughter, but the problem is they're just saying, well, because this person lost their daughter to someone in the gang, then Kilmar, if we say so, is in the gang because they're wearing Chicago Bulls jersey, and then Kilmar must be dangerous is basically how they're portraying this thing, but they're not really charging him with a specific crime of violence or something like that. That's what I'm saying here. And so if you read the headlines of how they portray this over at Fox, I just want you guys a sense of some differences here. So it says Rachel Marin's bum killer mooshed off locals before murdering mom of 5, said lawyer. And they always try to basically make it bigger than it is. Like when you say mom of 5, it makes it sort of in your mind, you're like, oh, did the person kill 5 people? That's just sort of how it sounds. And again, I don't want to make any light of anyone being killed by a gang member. I understand. I want to make that really clear. But it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone who looks a certain way is automatically guilty. And this is the person. His name was Victor Martinez Hernandez. Garcia and Hernandez are not the same person. I want to make that really clear. Oh, and this is sort of what they do at Fox News. They try to conflate the two. Oh, well, they all look the same. They must be the same. And I find it really offensive, to be perfectly frank, to treat people in that way. On top of that, I want to make this also clear. If you look at the Fox News right now, the top story that they're running is the El Salvador president reacts to alleged gang member sipping margaritas with Dem senator, right? You can see that right there. And then the lower left, which is not their top story, it was the shooting at Florida State. And there was a shooting just yesterday. And the headline is, Sheriff's deputy's son allegedly used her weapons to carry out deadly Florida State rampage. So basically it was, it was someone of a demographic that they don't want to, talk about. That's what Fox News. It says here, FSU shooter identified used sheriff deputy mom's weapon in killing. And that's the headline that they're using. But if you actually read the details of it, and just think about like the stories that Fox picks to, make front page or not. This is what happened at Florida State University. 2 people were killed and 6 others were injured in a shooting at Florida State University on Thursday in Tallahassee. So far, this leaves us with the reporting, right? This was the shooter, I guess. And again, this particular person, I guess his mom was like a police officer. He took her weapons and, did a shooting at Florida State. But because this person looks this way, right? I'll just be honest with you, it's like, why Fox isn't going to cover it? For me, any of this stuff is a tragedy. I want to make that extremely clear, right? If there's a shooting at Florida State, I don't feel happy about that. If someone's, daughter is killed, by some sort of gang member, I don't feel happy about that. I want to make that clear. But we live in this crazy world to where people feel like, I'm going to talk about one group of people and crimes, but I'm not going to talk about another. I think, if we want to move forward as better people in a better country, we have to talk about all this stuff in an honest way. Also talk about, Garcia in an honest way. I don't know the full situation with Garcia. I don't. Is he guilty of all the stuff that Fox says? I don't know. I'm honest with you. I don't know. But that's why you want due process. Show the evidence that you got Fox News and Pam Bondi or wherever. Present it to the courts, right? Show us what you have. If all you have is he wears a Chicago Bulls sweatshirt, you just sent off someone who, what he guilty of trying to look for work at Home Depot or IKEA. That's essentially what these kind of people do is they wait outside. And actually, if you don't know, my family is Vietnamese. And when I met my mom for the first time after 50 years, is a long story. But I actually, they live in Baltimore, which is the same area in Maryland. And I drove my mom around town and we would stop by this kind of store, like a Home Depot. And there were, migrant workers out there looking for work. They do this in the mornings. If you live in certain areas, it's not unheard of. So I actually understand completely the region that we're talking about and sort of the situation. And so it wouldn't be strange if, say people from El Salvador or whatever country are looking for work. And the way that Fox News hang out is like, oh, he's always hanging around gang members, et cetera. Well, they're probably just all there looking for work. Some might be in gangs, some might not be. Even if Garcia isn't said gang, they haven't charged him with any particular crime. This is also something I want to bring up because I just want to try to go through all of it. The Fox people are going to say, well, look at this headline. Wife of deported Maryland man, Abrego Garcia, said he scratched her in 2021 court documents. Okay. So, okay, I can see that. But if you read the full thing, it's not exactly what you think it is. This is according to her. She says, after surviving domestic violence in a previous relationship, I acted out of caution after disagreeing with Kilmar by seeking a protective order in case things escalated. Okay, so they had some sort of fight. She said a protective order and because she had a prior bad experience. But then she also says, we were able to work through this situation privately as a family, including by going to counseling. Kilmar has always been a loving partner and father, and I will continue to stand by him and demand justice for him. So that's a statement from her. So I mean, I don't know what else to say other than I think this is an important case because you do want to know the facts of this stuff as things can get twisted a bit. What's his status? And this part also, which Fox News doesn't tell you the full story, and I'm going to try the best of my ability to tell you everything. This is what it says. This is from the Washington Post. This came out today. He was born in El Salvador and fled to the United States more than a decade ago after gang members tried to extort his family and recruit him into the gang, right? And that was something that Jesse Waters was referring to. He kind of made fun of it, said thing, but my understanding of Garcia is his dad was a police officer. That's my understanding of it. And the gang is like trying to get, this kid in there and maybe you feel like your life is in danger, so you don't want to be part of it. It also says an immigration judge ruled in 2019 that he could not be deported to El Salvador. So a judge ruled, this is what the protected status come in, you could not be deported. The ruling was a humanitarian protection called withholding of removal, right? Because his fears that the gang, Barrio 18, would persecute him. So this was another gang, I guess. I looked up this removal. Is it withholding of removal? And it's an interesting status, and I'll read it to you. It says, withholding of removal is a form of protection from deportation. And this is what we refer to when we say he's under protected status, right? A form of protection from deportation that prohibits the U.S. government from returning an individual to a country where they face a high risk of persecution based on their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. It's a higher standard than asylum, meaning it's harder to get this than asylum, requiring proof that it's more likely than not, at least 51% chance that an individual will be persecuted if returned to their home country. Now, there is a problem with this, though, is that my understanding of it is there's no path to citizenship with here. And this sort of feels like our system is broken. I think this withholding and removal ruling is supposed to be some sort of temporary thing, and then you figure out, legal status, etc. But again, it shows that our system is broken. I'll also tell you this, in my wife's situation, we had a real tough time because my wife's a Korean national, Korean citizen, Korean passport. I'm a U.S. citizen, right? I'm a U.S. national, U.S. passport, right? So I'm American. My wife is Korean. When we got married, it was actually really difficult for us to be together because the paperwork was a whole mess to get the green card situation. And then when we decided to go back to Korea, in our situation, we wanted to cancel my wife's green card. I believe that was, I think, 2.5 years ago already. And we still haven't heard back from immigration. So it just takes so basically my wife's in limbo status right now, and we can't go to the USA. Or at least I can, but my wife cannot because they never resolved her green card situation. It is a complicated system in this with the holding of removal thing. It said here that there's no pathway to citizenship, which is kind of messed up. It says right here, yeah, no path to citizenship. Withholding of removal does not grant a path to citizenship. So. And then you can't really travel that much. It's not the same as asylum. And there's all this rigmarole with that. And when I read through this stuff, I'm just like, our system is broken because he's married to an American. His kids are American, or I should say United States citizens. That's a better way to say it. And so you would think like, hey, is there a pathway to citizenship for this guy? It's a strange system that we have. On top of that, I looked at this too. This is from BBC. This came out just a few hours ago. It says, what we know about the Kilmar, Abreu, Garcia, MS-13 allegations. It seems that there are discrepancies in some of the reports on him. And so I don't know what to make of that. I'm be honest with you. I don't know what to make of that. So like, why we have different, versions of this? And it depends, I guess, who you ask. And this is why it becomes difficult. So I'll read it to you. It says, according to his lawyers, Mr. Abreu Garcia has never been convicted of any criminal offense. Okay. Never been a victim of crime, including gang membership in the U.S. or El Salvador, okay? Never been convicted of being in a gang, right, in either country. He lived in the U.S. for 14 years, had 3 children, and worked in construction according to court records. Before I heard 10 years, this one says 14 years, or I guess before they were saying over 10 years. So he's been in the U.S. quite a long time. But the judge who presided over his case in 2019 said that based on confidential information, so we don't know what that information is, there was sufficient evidence to support Mr. Abreu's gang membership. That finding was later upheld by another judge. Okay, so that's where Fox is getting this stuff. As a result, Mr. Abreu Garcia was refused bail and remained in custody. During this time, he applied for asylum to prevent his deportation to El Salvador. So this is when he was saying my life's in danger, etc. And then you had the last ruling came in, which is the one that Fox skips over, because essentially, you go through the court process and then ultimately you obey the final ruling. In October 2019, and again, this is all 5 years ago, in 2019, he was granted a withholding of removal order. Our court documents show a status different from asylum, right? Which we just talked about this. And there's more. It says, Mr. Abreu Garcia's lawyers say he was granted the status based on the well-founded fear of persecution by Barro 18, the rival gang to MS-13, which is kind of interesting there. So, maybe in that situation, there's two, powerful gangs, and if you don't join one, that they threaten you, that kind of stuff, and then just like, I want to get out. But again, my understanding is that his dad was a police officer. That's my understanding of it. So I can imagine all sorts of things that go on with that stuff. But again, I don't see any specific crimes necessarily that he's hurt anyone or something like that in terms of, violence against, what's the right word to say it? In the situation. Okay, so I also want to be honest with you. So they're doing the domestic violence thing, but his wife, pulled that back and said we worked it out, that kind of stuff. And hey, because you're like, oh, Chris, you're wrong. He's a violent person. I don't know, honestly, guys, I don't. But what I do know is that people, regardless if you're a citizen or not, should have due process, and the time should fit the crime. In the situation of Garcia, if you send him to the El Salvador prison and his life's in danger, which a lot of people have feared, then obviously that doesn't really make sense. Let me read some more and you guys can get a sense of it. It says, Mr. Abreu Garcia's lawyers say, he said that prior to him entering the U.S., his family and their business had been threatened and extorted by Barro 18, right? That was what Jesse was referring to. Also says, since 2019, when he was released with a protective order, Mr. Garcia's lawyers said he had yearly check-ins with immigration officers, so they kept tabs on him, which is attended without fail and without incident. When you read all this stuff and everyone has, different things that they highlight. I just try to show you guys everything. And I think that's the most fair thing to say. The Fox people that they'll focus on this, it says, Mr. Abreu Garcia has faced at least 2 allegations of criminal activity, neither of which have resulted in a conviction. And then they'll just go on and to say, he's part of the gang and he's a really bad person, etc. If so, please present the evidence in court. If your evidence is all he is wearing is, Chicago Bulls stuff, and therefore he must be a bad person, that's not really very good evidence. And then it mentioned this as well. I want to mention it to you. It says, on April 15th, White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt accused Abreu of involved in human trafficking. Okay. And it says here, she appeared to be referring to a report in the Tennessee Star, a conservative news website. That Tennessee Star website that the Karen Leavitt is referring to is kind of like a fakey newsy website. So take that with a grain of salt. And this is sort of why you have to understand, like, this kind of stuff can spread like wildfire on Elon Musk's platform, and you basically can start making up stuff about someone. So again, my feeling on any of these things, presented in a court, tell it to a judge. And this person, Garcia, deserves his day today in court before you start throwing people in prison. So that's my feeling on that. I think this story reflects a lot of problems with our whole immigration system, and also to problems with the Trump people who are trying to skirt the law. If you guys have any questions or thoughts or things that I missed, please let me know. I just want to tell you guys the truth in this stuff and be honest about these things. And because I think any one of these types of cases are very, very sensitive, and it's not good for anyone to have misinformation on any of this stuff. That's my opinion on that. So I do appreciate your time, everyone, and I'll catch you on the next video.